Look at the food on your plate. Every leaf, every grain, every calorie is a product of a specific geometry. We imagine farming as a partnership with nature. It's not. It's a conquest of the grid. Modern farms march in perfect haunting lines. But those rows have nothing to do with how plants actually thrive. We plant this way for the benefit of 18th century machines not living soil. Biology took a backseat to horsepower. In the dry heart of Brazil, a man named Ernst Götsch decided to ignore the grid. He looked at 500 hectares of sun-bleached, brittle wasteland land the experts said was dead. He didn't bring irrigation. He didn't bring chemical fertilizers. He brought a different logic. He planted in circles. He mimicked the chaotic, layered density of a jungle. The result: he revived 17 lost springs. He turned a desert into a rainforest that produces food without a single drop of piped water. So why do we still plant for machines? The answer is buried in 1701. Picture an English field. A lawyer's son named Jethro Tull rolls a strange wooden contraption onto the dirt. This is the seed drill. Before this moment, farmers scattered seeds by hand, a method called broadcasting. It was messy, it was poetic, it was biological. Tull's machine changed everything. It dropped seeds in 3 neat parallel lines. Uniform depth, uniform spacing. The frame was rigid, built for horses to pull in a straight line. You couldn't turn it. You couldn't curve it. If you tried to follow the natural contour of the land, the gears jammed. The seeds spilled. The geometry was fixed rows, not circles. The machine made the line, and the line remade the land. By the 1920s, the grid became a religion. Government manuals warned farmers that a single bent row could cost them a day's work. Efficiency became the only metric that mattered. A tractor could plow 4 meters a minute in a straight line, but curves were waste. Curves were 30% lost profit. The farm became an assembly line. Every row was a conveyor belt. Every pass a race against the clock. But here is the cost of that efficiency. Soil is not a factory floor. When you force nature into a grid, you break its ability to hold water. You invite erosion. You kill the microbial networks that only thrive in the chaos of diversity. If we want to survive the next century, we have to adopt a new protocol. We have to unlearn the line. The protocol for a living landscape: first, abandon the monoculture grid. Nature never grows in a single species line. Second, plant in strata. Layer your crops like a forest canopy: tall trees, medium shrubs, ground cover. This creates its own microclimate. Third, prune for pulses. Don't just harvest. Prune to drop organic matter back onto the soil. This is the heartbeat of the system. Fourth, manage the water cycle, not the irrigation pipe. Use the geometry of the land, the swales and the curves, to trap every drop of rain where it falls. We have spent 300 years perfecting the geometry of the machine. It gave us abundance, but it cost us the earth. The line served the tractor. The circle serves the life. It's time to decide which one we're going to feed. Look at your plate. Every bite you take is shaped by a geometry you've never noticed. For 300 years, we have been at war with the circle. We replaced the messy, overlapping curves of nature with the rigid logic of the grid. It started in the 18th century with a wooden contraption on an English field, the seed drill. The machine made the line, and the line remade the land. Efficiency became our god. Biology took a backseat to horsepower, but the cost was hidden in the dirt. We didn't just grow food, we manufactured it. The farm became an assembly line, and the soil. The soil became sun-bleached, brittle, and exhausted. In Bahia, Brazil, the world had given up. They called it Fugidos da Terra Seca, the land of the dry escape. Decades of logging and cattle grazing had stripped the earth bare. The government wrote it off as a wasteland. Then came Ernst Götsch. He didn't arrive with a tractor or a bag of synthetic fertilizer. He arrived with a notebook and a machete. Experts told him the ground was dead. They insisted that only chemicals and straight rows could coax life from such a corpse. Götsch ignored them. He walked the land not looking for where to drive a machine, but where to place a bet. He refused the grid. Instead, he planted in dense, chaotic guilds. Bananas next to cacao. Native hardwoods shaded by legumes. Fast-growing pioneer species acting as biological nurseries for the slow and the steady. His protocol was a radical rejection of the industrial legacy first cover the wound. He cut branches for mulch, layering them thick across the bare dirt to feed the fungi below. Second, prune relentlessly. Every dropped leaf was a pulse of energy back into the system. Third, abandon irrigation. He bet that if he built the biology, the water would find its way home. Morning after morning, the machete swung. The line blurred. The farm began to look less like a factory and more like a riot. Then the miracle happened. Satellite images that once showed a pale, barren scar began to bleed deep green. The canopy rose. The old pasture vanished. And the water springs that had been dry for decades, 17 of them, began to flow again. Even in the height of a drought, the hillsides sent clear water down to the valleys. The machine demands order, but the forest demands balance. We were told the grid was the only way to feed the world. Ernst Götsch proved that the circle is more powerful. The farm became a forest, and the forest fed the people. Because in the end, the land doesn't need our machines. It just needs us to remember how to step out of the way. Look at a modern farm from 10,000 feet. It is a grid, a series of rigid, uncompromising lines carved into the dirt. We've been taught that this is efficiency. We believe the straight line is the shortest path to a harvest. But the earth does not speak in geometry. It speaks in flow. In the 18th century, Jethro Tull gave us the seed drill, and with it he imposed the logic of the machine onto the living soil. The farm became an assembly line. The machine made the line, and the line remade the land. For 300 years, biology took a back seat to horsepower. We turned the forest into a factory, and we're only now realizing the factory is breaking down. Enter Ernst Götsch. In Brazil, on land written off as a sun-bleached wasteland, Götsch didn't bring more pipes or more chemicals. He brought a different geometry. Locals watched in disbelief as his cacao didn't just survive, it thrived. By the 5th year, his beans fetched 4 times the market rate. The springs returned, the soil stayed cool. While neighbors fought droughts with pumps, Götsch's farm created its own rain. The secret isn't magic, it's math. Specifically, the Isoparametric Principle. In our world of rigid grids, we forget that the circle holds a quiet, devastating advantage. For any given boundary, no other shape encloses more area. Think about it. A 6-foot wide circle surrounds nearly 29 square feet of soil. Yet its perimeter is less than 19 feet. A straight row of the same length covers only 19 square feet. The circle packs more life inside with less exposure to the wind, the sun, and evaporation. Nature prefers the patch, the ring, and the cluster because that is where the edge effect happens. The richest biodiversity always lives at the margins where systems overlap. To move from the factory back to the forest, we must adopt the protocol of the circle. First, abandon the monoculture row. Design in patches that maximize the edge effect, allowing different species to shelter one another. Second, prioritize the living water system. Do not rely on external irrigation. Instead, use thick mulch and dense root networks to turn the ground into a biological sponge that holds water for weeks, not minutes. Third, manage for cooling. Use a dense canopy to shade the soil, dropping the ground temperature and reducing the need for chemical intervention. When we force the land into a grid, we create a system that is easy for a tractor to navigate but impossible for nature to sustain. Götsch proved that when you work with the logic of the circle, the farm stops being a drain on the earth and starts being a self-sustaining engine of growth. The proof isn't in a laboratory, It's in the taste of the cacao. It's in the steady, quiet hum of a forest that no longer needs us to survive. We chose the line for our convenience, but the circle is where life actually happens. Look at the world around you. Everything we've built, our cities, our factories, our farms, it's all trapped in a grid. We've been told that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. But in the world of biology, that line is a leak. In the 18th century, a man named Jethro Tull watched an English field and saw chaos. To fix it, he invented the seed drill. It was a wooden contraption that forced the earth into perfect, obedient rows. The machine made the line, and the line remade the land. Suddenly, the farm became an assembly line. Efficiency was measured by how fast a horse could walk. Biology took a back seat to horsepower. But go to a forest. You won't find a single straight line. Nature doesn't work in grids. It works in cycles. This is why when a gardener builds a keyhole bed, they aren't just making a garden. They are reclaiming an ancient geometry. It's a simple circle notched for access, with a compost basket at its heart. In a straight row, water is a traveler. It hits the soil and runs away, taking the best of the earth with it. But in a circle, water is a guest. Gravity and capillary action pull moisture outward from the center, seeping through the soil in every direction. The round shape slows the world down. It traps what would otherwise slip away. Every inch of that edge becomes a collector, not a drain. Inside this circle, the soil isn't just dirt. It's an engine. Beneath the surface, a hidden workforce is clocking in. Fungal filaments, mycorrhizal networks, stretch out like silver threads weaving from plant to plant. They are the underground pipelines shuttling phosphorus and water between neighbors. In this dense circular web, a single drop of water can travel across the entire bed. It's a self-watering nervous system, and the fuel for this engine it's called soil organic matter. Think of it as a sponge. For every 1% increase in organic matter, the soil can hold an additional 20,000 gallons of water per acre. That is the difference between a garden that thrives in a drought and a farm that turns to dust by noon. In a circular layout where roots overlap and mulch never leaves, this sponge builds itself. It's not magic. It's physics dressed up as biology. If you want to step out of the grid and into the cycle, follow the protocol. First, abandon the row. Build your bed as a circle with a radius no longer than your reach. This eliminates the need to trample the soil. Compaction is the enemy of life. Second, install the core. Place a perforated compost basket at the very center. This is your engine. Every time you water the center, you are fertigating the entire system from the inside out. Third, bridge the gaps. Plant in high density. Let the leaves touch. Hama. This creates a living mulch that shields the soil from the sun, keeping the fungal network cool and active. Finally, feed the sponge. Never leave the soil bare. Every leaf that falls, every branch you prune, it stays. It decays. It becomes the 1% that saves the next harvest. We have spent 3 centuries trying to flatten the earth into a grid, thinking we were being efficient. But the industrial legacy of the line has left us with sun-bleached, brittle soil. The machine made the line, but the circle makes the life. It's time we stop farming like we're building a car and start growing like we belong to the earth. Because in the geometry of growth, the most efficient path is the one that never ends. Look at a modern farm from 10,000 feet. What do you see? Lines? Perfect, rigid, unyielding lines. This is the geometry of efficiency. But for the soil, it is a cage. In the early 18th century, a man named Jethro Tull invented the seed drill. It was a wooden contraption that changed everything. Before Tull seeds were scattered, a chaotic biological dance. After Tull seeds were marched in formation, the machine made the line and the line remade the land. We turned the farm into an assembly line, prioritizing horsepower over biology. But as the lines grew straighter, the soil grew tired, brittle, sun-bleached, and thirsty. There is another way, a logic that doesn't use a ruler, but a pulse. Imagine a garden that breathes. Here, gravity isn't an enemy, it's a courier. In a circular system, water is pulled from a central heart outward. Capillary action wicks moisture through a dense root zone, while a hidden fungal network, the mycorrhizal web, distributes the bounty to the very edge. In this space, watering isn't a daily chore. It's a self-managing reserve. The soil stays cool, damp, alive. When plants are packed close enough to share the garden, stops being a collection of individuals and becomes a living reservoir. The line between plant and soil blurs. Efficiency is no longer about how fast a machine can move, but how much life a circle can hold. To build this, you must abandon the grid. Follow the protocol of the circle. Everything starts with a simple measurement 6 feet across. Take a length of string, tie it to a stake, and anchor the center. Walk the string around, marking the earth in a perfect ring. At 6 feet wide, you create nearly 30 square feet of growing space, all within arm's reach. No wasted steps, no trampled soil. At the very heart, dig the engine, a small central pit. This isn't just a hole for scraps, it is the nerve center. Drop in your kitchen, waste your weeds, your pruned stems. As they break down, nutrients seep outward, pulled by the fine threads of the fungi. The central pit turns the entire bed into a slow-release reservoir. Water poured here doesn't just vanish, it migrates, feeding every root in every direction. Accuracy is your only master here. If the circle is too wide, you lose your reach. Too small, and you lose the advantage of the edge. 6 feet is the sweet spot, compact enough for a child to manage, yet big enough to hold a full guild of life. Finally, plant the anchor. Right at the edge of that central core, drop in a young fruit tree, an apple, a peach, a fig. Something with a single trunk and a spreading canopy. This tree becomes the guardian, drawing strength from the compost and casting the shade that keeps the biology beneath it from burning away. Biology took a backseat to horsepower for 300 years. We built empires on the line, but we might just save the world with the circle. Because in the end, the farm shouldn't be an assembly line. It should be a forest that feeds you. Look at the landscape around you. It is a world of hard angles. We have forced the earth into a grid, perfect, sterile, and predictable. But nature does not know what a straight line is. In 1701, a man named Jethro Tull looked at the rolling fields of Berkshire, England, and saw a problem. To him, scattering seeds by hand was chaotic. It was inefficient. So he built a wooden contraption that would change the face of the planet, the seed drill. The machine made the line, and the line remade the land. Suddenly, biology took a backseat to horsepower. The farm became an assembly line. We traded the messy wisdom of the forest for the rigid efficiency of the grid. But 3 centuries later, that efficiency is failing. Our soil is sun-bleached and brittle. The grid is thirsty, and the machine is running out of steam. There is another way, a geometry that doesn't fight the earth, but flows with it. We call it the guild, a circle of life where every player has a purpose. Here is the protocol for the future of growth. First, the heart. At the center, you dig a compost pit. This is the engine room. This is where you jumpstart the system by pouring water directly into the core. Second, the defenders. Around the base of your tree, tuck in a tight circle of alliums, garlic chives, or onions. They are your natural armory. They release sulfur compounds that confuse the insects, creating a chemical shield for the fruit above. Third, the miners. At the outer edge, plant a band of comfrey and clover. Comfrey acts as a biological drill, its deep taproot mining minerals from the dark depths. Clover stays at the surface, fixing nitrogen directly into the topsoil. This is not a row of crops. It is a web of give and take. You chop the comfrey leaves and drop them as mulch. The fallen leaves of the tree feed the garlic. The fungal threads weave their network underground, connecting root to root. Within weeks, this bed holds moisture longer than any industrial row ever could. Even in the height of a sun-scorched summer, the soil stays cool. After the first season, the heavy lifting is over. A single bucket of water in the center can sustain the entire circle for days. The garden begins to water itself. Today, urban droughts and failing harvests are not problems that can be solved by bigger machines. They are answered by biology. The logic of the grid is facing its reckoning. We have spent centuries trying to straighten the world only to realize that life thrives in the curves. The future of food depends on whether we remember how to bend. Look at your own garden. Where could you break the line? Let me know in the comments. Let's start the conversation.